Marcus Thompson looked at the eviction notice in his hands. The paper was shaking because his hands were shaking. He read the words again, hoping they would change, but they stayed the same. You have 30 days to leave this house. Just 5 years ago, Marcus had been a successful man. He owned a computer consulting business. He had 15 employees who worked for him. His company helped other businesses fix their computer problems. Money came in every month like clockwork. Life was good. He lived in a nice house in the suburbs, with his wife Sarah and their daughter Emma. Emma was only 3 years old then, but she was already smart as a whip. She loved to play with toy computers and pretend she was fixing them like her daddy. Sarah worked as a nurse at the local hospital. They were happy. They had plans. They were going to buy a bigger house, maybe have another baby. Then everything started to fall apart. It began in 2007 when some of Marcus's clients started having money problems. A few small businesses that used his services had to close down. At first, Marcus was not worried. Business always went up and down. He had money, saved up. He could handle losing a few clients, but then more clients started to cancel their contracts. The economy was getting worse every day. Companies were cutting costs everywhere they could. Computer consulting was not something they needed right away, so they stopped paying for it. One by one, Marcus watched his clients disappear. By early 2008, Marcus had to let go of half his employees. He felt terrible about it. These people had families too. Some of them had worked for him for years, but he had no choice. There was not enough work to keep everyone busy. Then Sarah got sick. Started with headaches. Sarah thought it was just stress from work. The hospital was always busy and she was working long hours, but the headaches got worse. Then she started feeling tired all the time. Finally, she went to see a doctor. The doctor ran tests. Lots of tests. Marcus and Sarah waited for results that seemed to take forever. When the doctor finally called them into his office, Marcus knew from his face that the news was bad. "I'm sorry," the doctor said. "It's cancer." The words hit Marcus like a truck. Sarah started crying. Marcus held her hand, but he felt numb. Cancer. How could this happen to them? Sarah was only 32 years old. She was healthy. She took care of other people for a living. The doctor explained that Sarah had a brain tumor. It was serious, but there was hope. They could do surgery, then chemotherapy, then radiation. The treatment would be long and expensive, but Sarah could beat this. Marcus did not care about the money then. He would spend everything he had to save his wife. They started the treatment right away. Sarah had to quit her job at the hospital. She was too sick to work, and the chemotherapy made her weak and tired. She lost her beautiful hair, but she kept fighting. Emma did not understand why Mommy was always sleeping, but she was still too young to know how serious everything was. Marcus tried to keep his business running while taking care of Sarah and Emma. He took Sarah to all her doctor appointments. He cooked meals when Sarah was too sick to eat. He read bedtime stories to Emma when Sarah was too tired to get out of bed. The medical bills started coming in fast. Even with insurance, they had to pay thousands of dollars. The surgery alone cost $50,000. The chemotherapy was even more expensive. Marcus used up all their savings in the first 6 months. Then he started borrowing money. He took out a loan against the house. He used credit cards to pay for medicine and doctors. He sold his car and bought an old Honda Civic. He sold Sarah's jewelry and their nice furniture. Anything that had value, he sold. Meanwhile, his business was dying. The financial crisis of 2008 hit the whole country hard. Even his remaining clients could not pay their bills on time. Some of them went out of business completely. Marcus had to let go of his last employees. Soon it was just him, working from his kitchen table, trying to find any clients who still had money. Sarah fought hard for 2 years. She had good days and bad days. On good days, she would play with Emma and laugh like her old self. On bad days, she could barely open her eyes. Marcus never gave up hope. He believed she would get better, but the cancer was stronger than all of them. Sarah died on a cold Tuesday morning in November 2010. Marcus was holding her hand when she took her last breath. Emma was at school. Marcus had to go pick her up and tell his 8-year-old daughter that her mother was never coming home. The funeral cost money they did not have. Marcus borrowed more money to give Sarah a proper burial. Friends and family came to say goodbye. Everyone said nice things about Sarah. They said she was brave. They said she was a fighter. They said she was in a better place now. But Marcus felt empty. He had lost his wife. His business was gone. The bills kept coming. The house was about to be taken away from them. He had no idea how he was going to take care of Emma by himself. 2 weeks after Sarah's funeral, the bank sent the eviction notice. Marcus sat in his empty kitchen looking at the paper. Most of their furniture was already gone, sold to pay bills. The house felt cold and empty without Sarah. Emma was upstairs in her room, playing quietly. She had been very quiet since her mother died. Marcus did the math in his head. After they took the house, he would have about $300 left. His old Honda Civic still ran, barely. He had no job and no prospects. He was 41 years old and had nothing to show for it except a broken heart and a little girl who needed him. He thought about his parents, but they had died in a car accident when he was in college. Sarah's parents lived across the country and were struggling with their own money problems. His sister lived in another state with her own family. She had offered to help, but Marcus knew she could not afford to take care of him and Emma. Marcus folded the eviction notice and put it in his pocket. He walked upstairs to Emma's room. She was sitting on the floor playing with her toy computer. "Daddy," she said, looking up at him with Sarah's eyes. "Are we going to be okay?" Marcus knelt down and hugged his daughter. He did not know how to answer her question. He did not know if they were going to be okay. But he knew one thing for sure. He would do whatever it took to take care of her. Even if it meant living in their car. Even if it meant sleeping in parking lots. Even if it meant starting over from nothing. "Yes, sweetheart," he said, holding her tight. "We're going to be okay." He hoped he was telling the truth. It had been 6 months since Marcus and Emma lost their house. 6 months of living in their old Honda Civic. 6 months of moving from parking lot to parking lot, trying to find safe places to sleep. Marcus had become an expert at finding the best spots. The Walmart parking lot was good because it was well lit, and security did not bother people who stayed just one night. The 24-hour laundromat had clean bathrooms and was warm in winter. The public library parking lot was quiet, and Emma could use the bathrooms there in the morning before school. Emma still went to school every day. Marcus made sure of that. She had the same backpack, the same clothes, and the same lunchbox. He washed her clothes at the laundromat every few days. He made sure she looked just like any other kid. Her teachers and friends had no idea she was homeless. Every morning, Marcus would park near the school and walk Emma to the front door. He would tell her to have a good day and that he would pick her up later. Then he would spend the day looking for work. Finding a job was harder than he thought it would be. He had no address to put on applications. He had no place to take a shower every day. His clothes were clean but wrinkled from sleeping in the car. His phone was a cheap prepaid phone that barely worked. He looked like what he was, a man who was struggling. Marcus took any work he could find. He helped people move furniture for $20. He fixed computers for small businesses that paid cash. He cleaned office buildings at night while Emma slept in the car in the parking lot. The money was never enough, but it kept them fed and put gas in the car. On Tuesday morning in early March, it was raining hard in Seattle. Marcus had spent the night in the parking lot of a shopping center. Emma was still sleeping in the back seat, covered with their old blankets. Marcus sat in the front seat, drinking cold coffee from a thermos and reading the newspaper someone had left in a trash can. He was looking at the job listings when he heard a car horn honking. Then another horn. Then a lot of shouting. Marcus looked up and saw traffic was stopped on the busy street in front of the shopping center. In the middle of the street, a fancy black Tesla was not moving. Cars were backed up behind it. People were honking their horns and yelling. The driver of the Tesla was a woman in a business suit. She looked frustrated and was talking on her phone. Marcus watched for a few minutes. He could see the woman was upset. She kept trying to start her car, but nothing happened. Traffic was getting worse. People were getting angry. Marcus knew about cars. He had learned to fix things when he was young because his family did not have money to pay mechanics. Over the years, he had fixed computers, cars, washing machines, and anything else that broke. When you did not have money, you learned to fix things yourself. He looked at the Tesla and could tell something was wrong with the electrical system. The lights were flickering in a strange pattern. It was not the battery. It was something else. Emma woke up in the back seat. "Daddy, what's all that noise?" "Just some traffic problems, sweetheart. Go back to sleep for a little while." But Marcus could not stop watching. The woman was clearly in trouble. A tow truck had arrived, but the driver was scratching his head. He could not figure out what was wrong either. Marcus made a decision. He got out of his car. The rain soaked through his jacket immediately. He walked through the stopped traffic to the Tesla. The woman was still on her phone, but she looked up when Marcus knocked on her window. She rolled down the window a little bit. "Can I help you?" "Actually," Marcus said, "I think I can help you. I know something about cars. Mind if I take a look?" The woman studied Marcus for a moment. He was wet from the rain. His clothes were clean but old. He did not look like someone who would know about expensive cars. But she was desperate. "The tow truck driver already looked at it," she said. "He thinks it needs to go to the shop." "I see the problem," Marcus said. "Your electrical system is getting confused signals. It's not the engine or the battery. It's a communication error between your computer systems." The woman looked surprised. "How can you tell that?" "The way your lights are blinking. And I can hear a clicking sound from under the hood. It's trying to start, but the computer is getting mixed messages." The tow truck driver walked over. "Look, buddy, I've been doing this for 15 years. This car needs to go to the shop." Marcus looked at the woman. "Give me 5 minutes. If I can't fix it, the tow truck can take it. But I think I can get you back on the road." The woman hesitated. She looked at her phone. "I have a very important meeting in an hour." 5 minutes, Marcus said. She nodded. "Okay." Marcus popped the hood and looked at the engine. He could see the problem right away. A cable connection was loose but not completely disconnected. It was causing the computer to get partial signals. The car thought it was starting, but it was not getting complete information. He did not have the right tools, but he improvised. He used his car key to tighten a connection and his shoelace to secure a loose wire. Then he used a trick he had learned years ago. He disconnected the battery for 30 seconds to reset the computer system. "Try it now," he called to the woman. She turned the key. The Tesla started immediately. The woman got out of her car amazed. "How did you do that?" "Sometimes the simplest problems look the most complicated," Marcus said. "Your computer just needed to restart." The tow truck driver shook his head and drove away. Traffic started moving again. The woman looked at Marcus with new respect. "I'm Victoria Chen," she said, holding out her hand. "Marcus Thompson," he said, shaking her hand. "What do I owe you for fixing my car?" "Nothing," Marcus said. "Happy to help." Victoria looked confused. "Nothing, but you just saved me from being very late to an important meeting." Marcus shrugged. "It only took a few minutes." "Are you a mechanic?" "Not really. I used to own a computer consulting business. I just learned to fix things over the years." Victoria noticed that Marcus was soaked from the rain. His shoes had holes in them. His jacket was thin and old, but his eyes were kind and intelligent. "Where do you work now?" she asked. Marcus hesitated. "I'm between jobs right now." Just then, Emma's voice called from across the parking lot. "Daddy!" Marcus turned and saw Emma getting out of their car. She was carrying her school backpack and running toward him. "Daddy, you're all wet. Are you okay?" Marcus smiled and picked up his daughter. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just helping someone with their car." Victoria watched this interaction carefully. She noticed that Marcus and Emma had come from an old Honda Civic parked in the corner of the lot. She saw blankets and pillows in the back seat. She saw clothes hanging from hangers in the back window. She realized what she was looking at. Emma, this is Ms. Chen, Marcus said. Ms. Chen, this is my daughter, Emma. Nice to meet you, Emma, Victoria said gently. Are you the lady with the pretty car? Emma asked. Yes, I am. And your daddy just fixed it for me. Emma beamed with pride. My daddy can fix anything. Victoria looked at Marcus again. Here was a man who was clearly struggling, living in his car with his daughter. But he had stopped to help a stranger without asking for anything. In return, she had never met anyone like him. Marcus, she said, I'd like to give you something for helping me. That's really not necessary, Marcus said. Please. You saved my meeting, that's worth something to me. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Okay, really. Victoria pulled out her business card and a pen. She wrote something on the back of the card and handed it to Marcus. This is my card, she said. If you ever need anything, a job reference, help with anything, please call me. Marcus looked at the card. It said, Victoria Chen, CEO, NextGen Technologies. His eyes widened. You're the CEO of NextGen? Yes. And you just helped me more than you know. Victoria got back in her Tesla. Before she drove away, she rolled down her window one more time. Marcus, she said, I have a feeling we're going to see each other again. As Victoria drove away, Marcus stood in the rain holding her business card. Emma tugged on his jacket. Daddy, was that lady important? Marcus looked down at his daughter and smiled. I think she might be, sweetheart. I think she might be. He put the business card in his wallet, not knowing that in just a few days, Victoria Chen would need his help more than he could possibly imagine. Victoria Chen sat in her corner office on the 40th floor of the NextGen Technologies building. Through her window, she could see all of Seattle spread out below her. On a normal day, this view made her feel proud of what she had built. But today was not a normal day. Today was the worst day in the 15-year history of her company. Victoria had started NextGen when she was just 28 years old. She had one small office, 2 employees, and a big dream. She wanted to build a technology company that would help other businesses store their data safely in the cloud. It took years of hard work, but NextGen grew. They got bigger clients, they hired more employees, they moved to bigger offices. Victoria worked 18-hour days, but she loved every minute of it. She was building something important. Now NextGen had over 2,000 employees. They had offices in 12 cities. Their servers stored data for millions of customers around the world. Banks, hospitals, schools, and government agencies all trusted NextGen to keep their information safe. But 3 days ago, everything changed. It started on Monday morning when Victoria's head of security, David Park, burst into her office with a look of panic on his face. Victoria, we have a problem, he said. A big problem. David explained that hackers had broken into their system. They had stolen the personal information of 3 million customers. Names, addresses, phone numbers, credit card numbers, social security numbers, everything. How did this happen? Victoria asked, her heart sinking. We don't know yet, David said, but it gets worse. The attack is still happening. Our systems are failing one by one. We can't stop it. Victoria spent the rest of Monday in emergency meetings. Her best engineers worked around the clock trying to fix the problem. But every time they stopped one attack, 2 more would start. It was like trying to stop water from coming through a dam that was full of holes. By Tuesday, the news had leaked to the press. The headlines were brutal. NextGen security breach exposes millions, and tech giant fails to protect customer data. Victoria's phone rang constantly. Angry customers wanted answers she did not have. Lawyers talked about lawsuits. Government investigators demanded meetings. The company's stock price dropped by 40% in one day. But the worst part was that the attacks were getting stronger. Their servers were crashing faster than they could fix them. Customer websites were going offline. Databases were being corrupted. It was not just a security breach anymore. It was a complete system failure. Victoria called in the most expensive consultants in the country. Teams of experts flew in from New York and California. They brought the latest tools and the newest technology. They worked day and night drinking coffee and energy drinks, typing frantically on their keyboards, but nothing worked. The more they tried to fix the system, the worse it got. It was like the hackers were always one step ahead. Every time the experts built a wall, the hackers found a way around it. On Wednesday morning, Victoria met with her board of directors. These were the people who had invested money in NextGen when it was just starting. They had trusted Victoria to build a successful company. Now they were angry and scared. "Victoria," said Robert Martinez, the chairman of the board, "we need solutions, not excuses." "I understand," Victoria said. "My team is working around the clock." "Your team has had 3 days," said another board member, Patricia Wells. "How much longer are we supposed to wait?" Victoria looked around the conference room. These people had supported her for years, but now she could see doubt in their eyes. They were losing confidence in her leadership. "The consultants say they need more time," Victoria said. "The consultants are costing us $50,000 a day," Robert said, "and they're not making any progress." Patricia leaned forward. "Victoria, we respect everything you've built here, but our customers are leaving, our stock is crashing, we're facing lawsuits that could destroy the company." "What are you saying?" Victoria asked, though she was afraid she already knew. "We're saying that if you can't fix this problem by Friday, we'll have to consider new leadership," Robert said quietly. Victoria felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She had built this company from nothing. She had worked every day for 15 years to make it successful. Now they were talking about taking it away from her. "You're giving me 2 days?" Victoria asked. "We're giving you 2 days to save the company," Patricia said. "If the systems aren't working by Friday afternoon, we'll have no choice but to find someone who can fix this mess." After the board meeting, Victoria went back to her office and closed the door. She sat in her chair and put her head in her hands. Outside her window, the city of Seattle looked the same as always, but inside NextGen, everything was falling apart. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Victoria, the consulting team wants to meet with you." Victoria walked to the conference room, where 6 experts in expensive suits were sitting around the table. They had laptops open and papers spread everywhere. They looked tired and frustrated. "What's the latest?" Victoria asked. The lead consultant, a man named Dr. James Morrison, shook his head. "We've never seen anything like this. The attack is more sophisticated than we thought. It's not just one hacker. It's a coordinated group using multiple techniques. Can you stop it?" "We're trying everything we know, but whoever did this is very smart. They've planted code deep in your system. Every time we remove one piece, we find 10 more. How long will it take?" Dr. Morrison looked uncomfortable. "Honestly, we might need to rebuild the entire system from scratch. That could take months." Victoria's heart sank. "Months? We don't have months. We might not have days." Another consultant spoke up. "The problem is that your system is huge and complicated. We have a team of 20 people, but it's like looking for needles in a haystack. We need more time to understand how everything works." Victoria left the meeting feeling hopeless. She walked through the offices and saw her employees working frantically. Some of them had been sleeping at their desks for 3 days. They all looked exhausted and worried. These people depended on her. They had families to feed and bills to pay. If NextGen failed, they would all lose their jobs. Victoria felt responsible for every one of them. She thought about the customers who trusted NextGen with their data, small businesses that depended on their services, hospitals that stored patient records on NextGen servers, schools that used their systems to keep track of students. All of these people were counting on her to fix this problem. Victoria went back to her office and sat down. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a business card that someone had given her just a few days ago. She had almost forgotten about it. The card said Marcus Thompson and had a phone number written on the back. Victoria remembered the man who had fixed her car in the rain. He had solved a problem that a professional tow truck driver could not figure out. He had done it in 5 minutes with no fancy tools. He had seen something that others missed. Victoria picked up her phone and then put it down again. What was she thinking? Marcus was homeless. He lived in his car with his daughter. How could he possibly help with a computer problem that the best experts in the country could not solve? But then she remembered something Marcus had said. Sometimes the simplest problems look the most complicated. Victoria looked out her window at the city below. In less than 48 hours, the board would meet again. If she did not have an answer by then, her 15 years of work would be over. Next Gen would be destroyed, and thousands of people would lose their jobs. She had tried everything else. The expensive consultants were not working. Her own engineers were stumped. The sophisticated tools and fancy technology had all failed. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to call someone who thought differently than everyone else. Victoria picked up the phone and dialed the number on Marcus's business card. The phone rang 3 times before Marcus answered. Hello? Marcus, this is Victoria Chen. We met a few days ago when you fixed my car. Oh, hi, Ms. Chen. How are you? Victoria took a deep breath. Marcus, I need your help, and I think you might be the only person who can save my company. Marcus stared at his phone after Victoria hung up. She wanted him to come to Next Gen Technologies immediately. She said her company was in serious trouble and needed his help. He could hardly believe it. Daddy, who was that? Emma asked from the back seat of their car. They were parked outside the public library where Emma did her homework every afternoon. Remember the lady whose car I fixed? She wants me to help her with something at her work. Emma's eyes lit up. Does that mean you might get a job? Marcus did not want to get her hopes up. I don't know, sweetheart, but I have to go see what she needs. Marcus drove to the Next Gen building in downtown Seattle. It was a tall glass tower that seemed to touch the clouds. He had driven past it many times but never imagined he would go inside. The security guard at the front desk looked at Marcus suspiciously. Marcus was wearing his cleanest clothes, but they were still old and wrinkled. He did not look like someone who belonged in this fancy building. I'm here to see Victoria Chen, Marcus said. She's expecting me. The guard made a phone call. A few minutes later, Victoria appeared in the lobby. She looked tired and stressed, but she smiled when she saw Marcus. Thank you for coming so quickly, she said. Follow me. They took an elevator to the 40th floor. Victoria led Marcus through offices full of people working on computers. Everyone looked worried and exhausted. Some people were sleeping at their desks. What's going on here? Marcus asked. We're fighting for our lives, Victoria said. Someone hacked into our system 3 days ago. They stole customer data and they're destroying our servers. My best people can't figure out how to stop it. Victoria took Marcus to a conference room where 6 men in expensive suits were gathered, around laptops and tablets. These were the consulting experts, Dr. Morrison's team. Gentlemen, Victoria said, this is Marcus Thompson. He's going to take a look at our problem. The consultants looked up from their computers. They saw Marcus's old clothes and confused expressions cross their faces. Dr. Morrison spoke first. Victoria, with respect, we have 20 people working on this around the clock. We've brought in specialists from 3 different companies. What exactly does Mr. Thompson do? He fixes things, Victoria said simply. Does he have security clearance? This is highly sensitive data. Victoria realized the problem. Marcus could not access the secure areas of the building because he had no background check, no employment history with the company, and no permanent address. He'll work from the lobby, Victoria decided. Give him one of the old laptops. Show him what you've found so far. Dr. Morrison looked annoyed, but did as Victoria asked. They set up a borrowed laptop in the main lobby and connected it to a limited part of the Next Gen system. Marcus could see some of the problems, but he could not access the most important files. For the first hour, Marcus just watched and listened. The consultants explained what they had discovered. Hackers had broken into the system through email. They had planted malicious code that was spreading through the network like a virus. The code was deleting files and crashing servers. We've tried everything, Dr. Morrison said. Firewalls, antivirus software, system patches. Nothing works. The attacks keep getting stronger. Marcus studied the information on his laptop screen. He could see the pattern of the attacks, but something did not look right. Can you show me when the attack started? Marcus asked. Dr. Morrison pulled up a timeline. Here, Monday morning at 6:23 a.m. That's when we detected the first breach. Marcus looked at the data more carefully. But this shows activity starting on Sunday night. Look at these log files. Those are just routine system updates, another consultant said. We run those every weekend. Marcus frowned. Can you show me what these updates did? The consultants looked at each other. They had not examined the weekend updates closely because they assumed they were normal. They pulled up the files from Sunday night. Marcus studied them for a long time. He was not looking at the obvious things like the consultants. He was looking at the small details that everyone else had ignored. This is strange, Marcus said. These updates changed some very basic settings. Why would you update the time zone settings on all your servers? Time zone settings? Dr. Morrison said. That's not important. The real problem is the malicious code. But Marcus was not convinced. He had learned from years of fixing computers that the biggest problems often came from the smallest mistakes. When a computer was not working, sometimes the problem was not the big complicated thing you could see. Sometimes it was a tiny setting that was wrong. Can you show me who authorized these time zone changes? Marcus asked. The consultants spent an hour digging through records. Finally, they found the authorization. It came from a former employee named Kevin Walsh, who had been fired 6 months ago. Walsh still had access to the system? Victoria asked. No, Dr. Morrison said. We removed his access when he was terminated, but someone used his old login credentials to make these changes. Marcus was getting excited. What if the email attack was not the real attack? What if it was meant to distract you from something else? The consultants looked confused. What do you mean? Marcus pointed to his laptop screen. Look at the timing. The hackers sent obvious attacks through email that you could easily detect. While you were busy fighting those attacks, someone was quietly changing settings throughout your system. But time zone settings can't crash servers, Dr. Morrison said. They can if you're running time-sensitive processes, Marcus said. Do you have any systems that depend on exact timing? Victoria's eyes widened. Our backup systems, they run automated. Backups every night at exactly midnight if the time zones are wrong? Marcus nodded. Your backup systems think it's midnight when it's really not. They're trying to back up data while other systems are still using it. That's why everything is crashing. The consultants stared at Marcus in amazement. Dr. Morrison started typing frantically on his laptop. He's right, Dr. Morrison said after a few minutes. The backup conflicts are causing system crashes, but that's not all. Look at this. Dr. Morrison showed them something else he had found. The time zone changes also affected your security logs. The system thinks attacks are happening at different times than they really are. Your firewalls are trying to block attacks that already happened hours ago. Marcus felt like pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. So the hackers did two things. First, they changed your time settings to confuse your systems. Then they sent obvious attacks to keep you busy while your own backup systems destroyed your data. Victoria was amazed. Kevin Walsh knew our systems well enough to do this. He worked here for 3 years before we fired him. Why was he fired? Marcus asked. He was stealing company data to sell to competitors, Victoria said. But we never thought he would try to destroy the whole company. Dr. Morrison was already working on fixing the time zone settings. If we correct the time synchronization and stop the backup conflicts, we might be able to save the remaining data. But we still need to remove all the malicious code Walsh planted, another consultant said. Marcus studied the pattern of attacks again. He had an idea that the consultants would think was crazy. What if we don't remove the code? Marcus said. What if we use it against itself? What do you mean? Victoria asked. Marcus explained his idea. Walsh's code is designed to activate when certain conditions are met. Right now, those conditions are always being met because your time zones are wrong. But if we fix the timing and then deliberately trigger the code at the right moment, we might be able to trace it back to its source and remove it all at once. Dr. Morrison shook his head. That's incredibly risky. If it doesn't work, we could lose everything that's left. Victoria looked at Marcus. What do you think? Marcus thought about Emma waiting for him in the car downstairs. He thought about all the next-gen employees who might lose their jobs. He thought about the customers whose data had been stolen. "I think," Marcus said, "that sometimes you have to take a big risk to fix a big problem. Your current approach isn't working, you have nothing left to lose." Victoria made her decision. Do it. For the next 4 hours, Marcus worked with the consultants to carefully fix the time zone settings and prepare to trigger Walsh's malicious code. It was like defusing a bomb while it was exploding. At 11:47 p.m., they activated Marcus's plan. For 30 seconds, every screen in the next-gen building went black. Victoria held her breath. If this did not work, her company would be completely destroyed. Then, one by one, the servers started coming back online. The malicious code had been traced to its source and removed. The backup system stopped crashing. The firewalls started working correctly. Dr. Morrison stared at his laptop in disbelief. It worked. The systems are stabilizing. Victoria felt like crying with relief. "Marcus, how did you know to look at the time zones?" Marcus smiled tiredly. "When I was living in my car, I learned that sometimes the biggest problems come from the smallest things going wrong. A loose cable, a wrong setting, a simple mistake. Everyone was looking for complicated answers to a complicated attack. But the real problem was simple." Victoria looked at Marcus with newfound respect. This homeless man with no formal training had solved a problem that had stumped the best experts money could buy. "Marcus," she said, "I think we need to talk." The next morning, Victoria called an emergency meeting with her board of directors. Marcus was sitting in the lobby with Emma, who had missed school to stay with her father. Victoria had insisted they both come to the office. Marcus felt nervous. He was wearing the same clothes from yesterday because they were his only clean ones. Emma was playing quietly with her toy computer, drawing curious looks from the fancy business people walking through the lobby. "Mr. Thompson?" Victoria's assistant appeared. "Ms. Chen is ready for you." Marcus took Emma's hand and followed the assistant to the conference room. Inside, 12 people in expensive suits were sitting around a long table. These were the most powerful people at NextGen Technologies. Victoria stood up when Marcus entered. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Marcus Thompson. He's the man who saved our company." The board members looked at Marcus with surprise. They had expected to meet some famous computer expert, not a man in worn clothes holding the hand of a little girl. Robert Martinez, the chairman, spoke first. "Mr. Thompson, we understand you helped solve our technical crisis. The board is very grateful." "It was my pleasure to help," Marcus said quietly. Patricia Wells leaned forward. "Victoria tells us that our own experts couldn't fix the problem, but you found the solution in just a few hours. How is that possible?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Sometimes it helps to look at things differently. I didn't have all the complicated tools, so I had to focus on the simple things." "What's your background in cybersecurity?" another board member asked. "I don't have one," Marcus admitted. "I used to own a small computer consulting business, but I've been out of work for a while." The board members exchanged glances. They were clearly surprised that someone with no formal training had solved such a complex problem. Victoria stood up. "The technical details don't matter. What matters is that Marcus saved NextGen when no one else could. Our systems are running normally. Our data is secure. Our customers are happy." Robert nodded. "Mr. Thompson, the board would like to offer you a consulting fee for your work. Would $50,000 be appropriate?" Marcus's eyes widened. $50,000 was more money than he had seen in years. It would be enough to rent an apartment and get back on his feet. But Victoria held up her hand. "Actually, I have a different proposal." She looked directly at Marcus. "Marcus, I want to offer you a job. Not just any job. I want you to be our new Chief Technology Officer." The room went silent. Even Emma looked up from her toy computer. Marcus felt like he could not breathe. "I'm sorry, what?" "Chief Technology Officer," Victoria repeated. "You would be in charge of all our computer systems. You would lead a team of engineers. You would help us prevent problems like this from happening again." Dr. Morrison, who was also in the room, looked shocked. "Victoria, with all due respect, Mr. Thompson has no formal qualifications for such a position. He has something better than qualifications," Victoria said. He has results. He solved a problem that stumped 20 experts with advanced degrees. Robert looked concerned. Victoria, this is very generous, but the CTO position comes with a salary of over $2 million a year, plus stock options. We're talking about a very significant financial commitment. Marcus felt dizzy. $2 million? He had been living in his car. He had been worried about buying Emma lunch. Now they were talking about more money than he could imagine. I appreciate the offer, Marcus said slowly. But I think there might be some mistake. I'm not qualified to run a technology department. You're exactly qualified, Victoria said. You think differently than everyone else. You see solutions where others see problems. That's what we need. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, what's happening? Marcus knelt down to her level. The nice lady wants to offer Daddy a job. A good job? Emma whispered. A very good job, Marcus whispered back. Victoria watched this, exchange with a smile. Then she made another announcement that surprised everyone even more. There's one more thing, Victoria said. Marcus, I know you and Emma have been going through a difficult time. I want the company to provide you with temporary housing while you get settled. A nice apartment where Emma can have her own room. The board members looked at each other nervously. This was far beyond a normal job offer. Marcus stood up slowly. Ms. Chen, this is incredibly generous. But I have to ask, why? Why would you do all this for someone you barely know? Victoria thought for a moment before answering. When my car broke down, you helped me without asking for anything in return. You could have walked away, but you didn't. You saw someone who needed help and you helped them. She paused and looked around the room. In business, we get so focused on competition and profit that we forget about basic human kindness. You reminded me what that looks like. Victoria turned, back to Marcus. But there's another reason. Yesterday, when our company was falling apart, you saw things that no one else could see. You solved problems that seemed impossible. That's not just technical skill, that's wisdom. Wisdom? Marcus asked. You learned to solve problems when you had no resources. You learned to fix things when you couldn't afford to replace them. You learned to survive when everything seemed hopeless. Those are exactly the skills we need here. Patricia Wells spoke up. Mr. Thompson, do you have any conditions for accepting this position? Marcus looked down at Emma, then back at the board. Actually, yes, I do. Victoria looked surprised. What kind of conditions? Marcus took a deep breath. I'll take the job, but not the full salary. I want you to take half of that money and use it to create a program. What kind of program? Robert asked. A program to train homeless people in technology. Skills, Marcus said. There are a lot of people living in their cars in shelters on the streets. Some of them are very smart. They just need a chance. The room was quiet for a long moment. No one had expected Marcus to negotiate for less money. Victoria smiled. You want to help other people like yourself? I got lucky, Marcus said. I met you. But there are thousands of people out there who won't get lucky. They need someone to give them a chance. What would this program look like? Patricia asked. Marcus had been thinking about this idea since Victoria first offered him the job. We could teach basic computer skills, coding, cybersecurity, but also practical things, how to interview for a job, how to get an address, how to present yourself professionally. And you think homeless people could learn these skills? Dr. Morrison asked skeptically. Marcus looked at him directly. Dr. Morrison, 3 days ago, I was homeless. Yesterday, I saved your company. What do you think? Dr. Morrison had no answer for that. Victoria stood up. Marcus, I think your program is a brilliant idea. We'll call it the Second Chance Technology Initiative. Robert looked around the table at the other board members. They had a quick, whispered conversation. Mr. Thompson, Robert said finally, the board accepts your conditions. Welcome to NextGen Technologies. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. After months of sleeping in his car, worrying about Emma's future, wondering if they would ever have a normal life again, everything was about to change. Emma looked up at her father. "Daddy, does this mean we get to live in a real house again?" Marcus picked up his daughter and hugged her tight. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to have a real house. And you're going to have your own room." Victoria watched father and daughter celebrate and felt proud of her decision. She had taken a big risk hiring Marcus, but she knew it was the right choice. "There's just one more thing," Victoria said. "Marcus, when can you start?" Marcus laughed through his tears. "How about right now?" As the board meeting ended and people started to leave, Victoria pulled Marcus aside. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" Marcus asked. "For reminding me why I started this company in the first place. It wasn't just about making money. It was about using technology to help people. I had forgotten that somewhere along the way." Marcus shook Victoria's hand. "Thank you for giving me and Emma a second chance." "Actually," Victoria said with a smile, "I think you're giving all of us a second chance." Outside the conference room, Emma was telling Victoria's assistant about her toy computer. The assistant was listening with genuine interest, asking Emma to explain how it worked. Marcus watched his daughter talking confidently with the grown-up and felt hopeful about the future for the first time in years. Tomorrow, they would move into a real apartment. Emma would have her own bed again, and Marcus would start building something that could help thousands of other people who were struggling just like they had been. It was more than he had ever dared to dream possible. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a small classroom in downtown Seattle. 15 people sat at tables with laptop computers, all of them focused on their screens. These students looked different from typical computer classes. Their clothes were a mix of donated items and thrift store finds. Some carried plastic bags with their belongings. All of them had been homeless just a few weeks ago. "Remember," Marcus said to the class, "coding is just problem solving. Break big problems into small pieces. Solve one piece at a time." A woman named Sarah raised her hand. She was 45 years old and had been living in her car for 8 months after losing her job as a bank manager. "Marcus, I'm still confused about this loop function. Can you explain it again?" Marcus smiled. "Of course, Sarah, think about when you do laundry. You wash one load, then you check if you have more clothes. If yes, you wash another load. If no, you're done. That's exactly what a loop does in programming." Sarah's face lit up with understanding. "Oh, so the computer keeps repeating the same task until it's finished with everything." "Exactly," Marcus said. "You're getting it." Marcus looked around the classroom with pride. The Second Chance Technology program had grown from an idea into reality. Victoria had been true to her word. She gave Marcus half of his CTO salary to fund the program, plus additional money from NextGen's community service budget. The program was more than just computer classes. Marcus had learned that homeless people faced many barriers to getting jobs, so the program addressed all of them. Students got free meals during class time. Many of them had not eaten regular meals in months. Marcus remembered how hard it was to think clearly when you were hungry. The program provided professional clothes. For job interviews, Marcus worked with local clothing stores to donate suits and dresses. He remembered how embarrassed he felt wearing worn clothes to business meetings. Most importantly, the program gave students a mailing address. Marcus had rented a small office that served as the program headquarters. Students could use this address on job applications and resumes. Marcus knew how impossible it was to get hired without an address. The program also included counseling services. Marcus hired Dr. Linda Rodriguez, a psychologist who specialized in helping people who had experienced trauma. Many homeless people struggled with depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Dr. Rodriguez helped students deal with these challenges while they learned new skills. Marcus's favorite part of the program was the mentorship component. He had recruited volunteers from NextGen and other tech companies to work with students one-on-one. These mentors helped with technical questions, but also with practical things like how to write a resume or prepare for interviews. Today was graduation day for the first class. Marcus felt nervous and excited. 15 people had started the program 12 weeks ago. 14 had completed it. That was a much higher success rate than Marcus had expected. The graduation ceremony was held in NextGen's main conference room. Victoria had insisted on hosting it at the company headquarters. She wanted to show the students that they belonged in professional spaces. Emma, now 9 years old, sat in the front row. She had become the unofficial mascot of the Second Chance program. After school, she often came to the classes and helped students with basic computer questions. She was patient and encouraging, just like her father. Victoria stood up to address the graduating class. 6 months ago, Marcus Thompson came to me with an idea. He said there were talented people living on the streets who just needed a chance to show what they could do. I believed him because Marcus himself was proof that this was true. She looked at the students. Today, 14 of you are graduating with new skills and new hope. But more than that, you're graduating with jobs. The students looked surprised. They had been told they would help them find work after graduation, but no one had promised them immediate employment. Victoria smiled. I'm pleased to announce that NextGen Technologies is hiring 6 graduates as entry-level technicians. Microsoft has agreed to hire 3 graduates. Amazon will hire 2, and 3 graduates have been accepted into advanced training programs at Seattle Community College. The room erupted in applause. Students hugged each other and wiped away tears. Marcus felt overwhelmed with emotion. Sarah, the former bank manager, was one of the students hired by NextGen. I can't believe this is real, she said to Marcus. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car. Now I have a job at a tech company. Marcus hugged her. You earned this, Sarah. You worked hard and never gave up. Another graduate, a man named David, who had been homeless for 2 years, was hired by Microsoft. Marcus, he said, you saved my life. I was ready to give up on everything. This program gave me hope again. After the ceremony, Victoria pulled Marcus aside. The Second Chance program is getting attention from other cities. Portland wants to start a similar program. So does San Francisco. Marcus was amazed. Really? There's more, Victoria said. The mayor of Seattle wants to meet with you next week. She's interested in expanding the program citywide. Marcus shook his head in wonder. I never imagined it would grow this big. I did, Victoria said. I knew from the moment you negotiated for this program, instead of a higher salary, that you were thinking bigger than just yourself. That evening, Marcus and Emma walked through their neighborhood. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment now. Marcus had refused Victoria's offer of a luxury condo. He wanted to live somewhere normal, somewhere Emma could make friends with regular kids. Emma had adjusted well to their new life. She was doing excellent in school and had made several friends. But she never forgot where they had come from. Daddy, Emma said as they walked, do you miss living in the car? Marcus was surprised by the question. Miss it? No, sweetheart. Why do you ask? I don't miss being homeless, Emma said thoughtfully. But I miss how we used to talk every night in the car. We would look at the stars, and you would tell me stories. Marcus realized that in their new busy life he had been spending less time, just talking with Emma. You're right, he said. We should make time for that again. How about we sit on our balcony tonight and look at the stars? Emma smiled. And you can tell me about the students in your program. That night, Marcus and Emma sat on their small balcony, looking up at the Seattle sky. Marcus told Emma about Sarah, who was learning to code databases. He told her about David, who was becoming an expert in cybersecurity. He told her about Maria, who wanted to start her own technology business someday. They all remind me of you. Daddy, Emma said. What do you mean? They're all really smart, but people didn't notice because they didn't have nice clothes or a fancy address. Just like you when you fixed that lady's car. Marcus smiled. His daughter understood something that many adults missed. Intelligence and talent had nothing to do with how much money you had or where you lived. Emma, Marcus said. What do you want to be when you grow up? Emma thought for a moment. I want to help people like you do. Maybe I'll be a teacher, or maybe I'll start my own program. What kind of program? A program for kids whose parents are homeless, so they don't have to be scared or embarrassed like I was. Marcus felt proud of his daughter's compassion. She had learned from their difficult experience and wanted to use it to help others. As they sat under the stars, Marcus thought about how much their lives had changed. A year ago, he had been desperate and hopeless. Now he had a good job, a nice home, and the chance to make a difference in other people's lives. But the best part was that Emma was happy and safe. She had her own room, with a real bed and her own desk. She had friends at school and a bright future ahead of her. "Daddy," Emma said sleepily, "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart." Marcus looked up at the stars and felt grateful for the chance encounter that had changed everything. He thought about Victoria, who had taken a risk on a homeless man with an old car and simple tools. He thought about the students in his program, who were getting second chances to build better lives. Tomorrow, he would start planning the next session of the Second Chance program. There were 50 people on the waiting list. Each of them had a story like his own. Talented people who had fallen on hard times and needed someone to believe in them. Marcus smiled as Emma fell asleep in the chair next to him. This was just the beginning. There was so much more work to do, so many more lives to change. But tonight, under the stars with his daughter beside him, Marcus felt like the luckiest man in the world. 2 years after the first graduation ceremony, Marcus stood on a stage in front of 300 people. He was giving a speech at the National Conference on Homelessness in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, he would never have imagined himself speaking to government officials, business leaders, and social workers from across the country. "When I started the Second Chance Technology program," Marcus said into the microphone, "I thought we might help a few dozen people. I never imagined it would grow into something this big." The audience listened carefully as Marcus told them the numbers. The Seattle program had graduated over 400 people. 85% of graduates had found stable employment within 6 months. Similar programs had started in 15 cities across the United States. But the real success, Marcus continued, is not in the statistics, it's in the individual stories. People like Maria Santos, who went from living in a shelter to starting her own web design business. People like Robert Kim, who went from sleeping under bridges to working as a cybersecurity specialist for the government. In the audience, Marcus could see Victoria Chen sitting in the front row. She had flown to Washington to support him. Next to her sat Emma, now 11 years old and missing school to watch her father speak. After his speech, Marcus was surrounded by people wanting to know more about the program. Mayors from different cities asked how they could start similar programs. Tech company executives wanted to know how they could help. University professors were interested in studying the program's methods. Dr. Angela Foster, who ran a foundation that helped homeless veterans, approached Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I've been following your work for months. We have thousands of veterans who could benefit from a program like yours." Marcus smiled. "I'd love to talk about that. Many of our most successful graduates are veterans." A reporter from CNN interviewed Marcus for a documentary about innovative solutions to homelessness. "What makes your program different from other job training programs?" she asked. "We treat people with dignity," Marcus said. "We don't just teach technical skills. We address the whole person. We provide food, clothing, counseling, and most importantly, hope." The reporter nodded. "You were homeless yourself not long ago. How does that experience inform your work?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "When you're homeless, you become invisible to most people. They look right through you. Our program makes people visible again. We see their potential, not just their circumstances." Later that evening, Marcus, Victoria, and Emma had dinner at a restaurant near their hotel. Emma was excited about everything she had seen that day. "Daddy, there were so many important people listening to you today," Emma said. "The mayor of Los Angeles wants to start your program there." Marcus laughed. "It's not really my program anymore, Emma. It belongs to everyone. Who helps make it work?" Victoria smiled. "Marcus, you're being too modest. None of this would exist without your vision." "It exists because you believed in me," Marcus said to Victoria. "You took a chance on someone who looked like he had nothing to offer." "You had everything to offer," Victoria replied. "I just had to be smart enough to see it." The next morning, Marcus received a phone call that surprised him. It was from the White House. President Johnson wanted to meet with him to discuss expanding the Second Chance program nationally. 3 weeks later, Marcus found himself in the Oval Office. He was wearing a suit that Victoria had insisted on buying for him. Emma sat next to him, wearing her best dress and looking amazed to be in the president's office. President Johnson was a friendly woman in her 50s who had built her political career on helping working families. She had read about the Second Chance program in a magazine article and was impressed by its success rate. "Mr. Thompson," the president said, "your program has caught the attention of people across the country. We're looking for innovative ways to address homelessness, and your approach seems to be working." Marcus felt nervous talking to the president, but he tried to stay focused on helping people. "Thank you, Madam President. The key is recognizing that homeless people are not broken, they just need opportunities." "Tell me about your students," the president said. Marcus told her about James, a former construction worker who had become homeless after a back injury. The Second Chance program trained him in computer repair, and now he owned a small business fixing laptops for college students. He told her about Linda, a single mother who had lived in her car with her 2 children. She learned coding through the program and now worked for a startup company, earning enough money to rent a nice apartment. He told her about Tom, a military veteran with PTSD who had been living on the streets for 5 years. The program's counseling services helped him deal with his trauma while he learned cybersecurity skills. Now he worked for the Department of Defense, helping protect government computer systems. "These stories are remarkable," the president said. "How can we help you expand this program?" Marcus had been thinking about this question for months. "We need 3 things. First, funding to train more instructors. Second, partnerships with more companies to hire graduates. Third, support from local governments to provide facilities." The president nodded. "What would it look like if we implemented this program in every major city in America?" Marcus felt excited by the possibility. "We could help hundreds of thousands of people. We could show the country that homelessness is not a permanent condition. It's a temporary problem that can be solved with the right support." Emma, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, suddenly spoke up. "Madam President, can I say something?" The president smiled. "Of course, Emma. My daddy was homeless too. We lived in our car for a long time. But he's really smart, and now he helps other people. There are lots of smart people living on the streets who just need someone to believe in them." The president looked impressed by Emma's words. "You're very wise for someone so young, Emma." After the meeting, the president announced a new federal initiative. The government would provide $50 million to expand the Second Chance program to 50 cities over the next 3 years. The news made headlines across the country. Marcus did interviews with newspapers, TV shows, and radio programs. Everyone wanted to know about the homeless man who had become a national leader in fighting homelessness. But Marcus's favorite interview was with a local Seattle TV station. The reporter asked him what he was most proud of. "I'm most proud of my students," Marcus said. "Every person who graduates from our program proves that success has nothing to do with where you start in life. It has everything to do with how hard you're willing to work and whether someone is willing to give you a chance." The reporter asked Emma what it was like having a famous father. "He's not famous to me," Emma said with a smile. "He's just my daddy. But I'm proud that he helps people. When I grow up, I want to help people too." That evening, Marcus and Emma walked through their old neighborhood. They passed the parking lot where they used to sleep in their car. It looked the same, but everything else had changed. "Do you ever think about how different our lives are now?" Emma asked. Marcus nodded. "Every day. 2.5 years ago we had nothing. Now we have more than I ever dreamed possible." "What's the best part?" Emma asked. Marcus thought for a moment. "The best part is not the job or the apartment or the recognition. The best part is knowing that we're helping other families avoid what we went through." Emma smiled. "And the best part for me is that you're happy again. When we lived in the car, you were sad a lot. You tried to hide it, but I could tell." Marcus hugged his daughter. "You're right. I was sad. I was scared. I didn't know how we're going to survive. But you never gave up, Emma said. I couldn't give up, Marcus replied. You needed me to keep trying. As they walked home, Marcus thought about all the people whose lives had been changed by the Second Chance program. Students who now had careers, families who were no longer homeless, children who had hope for the future. It had all started with a simple act of kindness, helping a stranger fix her car in the rain. That moment had created a ripple effect that was now spreading across the entire country. Tomorrow, Marcus would start planning the expansion to 50 new cities. There would be challenges and obstacles, but he was no longer the desperate man who had once lived in his car. He was someone who had learned that even the biggest problems could be solved, one person at a time. Emma took his hand as they reached their apartment building. Daddy, do you think we'll help 1 million people someday? Marcus smiled. Emma, I think we're going to help even more than that. Looking up at their apartment windows glowing warmly in the evening light, Marcus felt grateful for the journey that had brought them here. The hardest chapter of their lives had led to the most meaningful chapter, and this was still just the beginning. 5 years after Marcus first fixed Victoria's car in the rain, he stood in the same next-gen conference room where the board had first offered him a job. But this time, he was not the one receiving an offer. He was the one making an announcement that would shock everyone. The conference room was packed with board members, employees, and reporters. Victoria sat at the head of the table, but today she looked different. There were tears in her eyes and a smile on her face that mixed pride with sadness. Emma, now 13 years old, sat in the front row next to Dr. Rodriguez and several graduates from the Second Chance program. She knew what her father was about to announce, and she was proud of him, even though it meant big changes for their family. Marcus stood up and looked around the room at the faces of people who had become like family to him. 5 years ago, he had been a desperate man with nothing to lose. Today he was about to make a decision that would change everything again. 5 years ago, Marcus began, Victoria Chen took the biggest risk of her business career. She hired a homeless man to be the chief technology officer of her company. Everyone thought she was crazy. The room chuckled. Several board members nodded, remembering their doubts about Marcus when Victoria first proposed hiring him. Today, I want to announce that Victoria has decided to step down as CEO of Next Gen Technologies. The room gasped. This was not what anyone had expected to hear. Marcus continued. After 15 years of leading this company, Victoria wants to focus on other projects. She believes it's time for new leadership. Robert Martinez, still the chairman of the board, stood up. Marcus, the board has unanimously agreed that you should be Victoria's successor. We want you to become the new CEO of Next Gen Technologies. The employees in the room began applauding. Marcus had transformed not just the company's technology systems, but its entire culture. Under his leadership as CTO, NextGen had become known as the best place to work in the technology industry. The company now hired more people from diverse backgrounds than any other tech company. They offered mental health services, flexible work, schedules, and support for employees going through difficult times. The company had grown by 300% in 5 years, but it had also become more human. Marcus raised his hand to quiet the applause. I'm honored by the board's confidence in me. But before I accept this position, I have an announcement to make. The room fell silent. Victoria looked confused. This was not part of the plan they had discussed. Over the past 5 years, Marcus said, I have accumulated stock options in NextGen worth approximately $40 million. Today I'm announcing that I'm donating all of that money to create a new foundation. The room erupted in shocked whispers. $40 million was more money than most people could imagine. Why would Marcus give it all away? Emma smiled from the front row. She and her father had talked about this decision for months. She understood why he was doing it, even if the adults in the room did not. Marcus waited for the room to quiet down before continuing. The foundation will be called the Second Chance Foundation. Its mission will be to expand opportunity programs for homeless people across the entire country. Victoria looked amazed. Marcus, are you sure about this? That money could secure your and Emma's future forever. Marcus smiled at her. Victoria, you taught me something important when you hired me. You showed me that real security doesn't come from money. It comes from knowing that you're using your talents to help other people. He looked around the room. The Second Chance program has helped over 2,000 people in the past 5 years, but there are still hundreds of thousands of people living on the streets, in cars, in shelters. They have talents and intelligence that the world is wasting. Marcus pulled out a folder of papers. This foundation will fund Second Chance programs in 100 cities. We'll train 10,000 people every year. We'll show the country that homelessness is not a character flaw. It's a problem we can solve. Dr. Rodriguez stood up and began applauding. Soon the entire room was on their feet, giving Marcus a standing ovation. Patricia Wells, the board member, who had once doubted Marcus, wiped tears from her eyes. Marcus, this is the most generous thing I've ever seen anyone do. But Marcus was not finished with his surprises. There's one more thing, he said. I'm accepting the position of CEO, but I'm asking the board to restructure my compensation package. Robert looked confused. What do you mean? I want my salary to be tied directly to the success of our social programs. For every person we hire from the Second Chance program, I want a bonus that goes directly to the foundation. I want NextGen to be the first company where the CEO's pay is connected to how much good the company does in the world. The board members looked at each other in amazement. They had never heard of a CEO asking for less money and more accountability. Victoria stood up. The board will need to vote on these proposals, but I can tell you right now that you have my full support. After a brief recess, the board voted unanimously to approve Marcus's compensation structure and to support the Second Chance Foundation. When the meeting ended, Victoria and Marcus stood alone in the conference room. Marcus, Victoria said, when I hired you, I thought I was saving my company. I had no idea you would end up changing everything about how business can be done. Marcus shook his head. You started this, Victoria. You showed me that success is not about what you get. It's about what you give. Victoria smiled. What's next for you? Well, first I have to figure out how to be a CEO, Marcus laughed. Then I have to build a foundation that can help hundreds of thousands of people. And most importantly, I have to make sure Emma still has time to be a kid. Emma appeared in the doorway. Daddy, are you ready to go home? Marcus looked at his daughter. She had grown up so much in the past 5 years. She was smart, confident, and compassionate. She volunteered at the Second Chance program every weekend and was already talking about studying social work in college. Emma, Victoria said, what do you think about your father becoming CEO? Emma considered the question seriously. I think he'll be good at it. He's good at helping people solve problems, and he always remembers what it feels like to need help. As they left the NextGen building that evening, Marcus and Emma walked past the coffee shop where Marcus had first met Victoria. The rain was falling again just like it had 5 years ago. Daddy, Emma said, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't helped that lady with her car? Marcus thought about it. Sometimes. But I think everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. Why?